Hello and welcome to the Well Played Podcast. I'm your host, Warren Curtis. This week we are talking about the PS5 Pro, Far Cry 7 rumors, Blue Egos Gaming, and maybe even more Metroid. But before we get into it, let's talk about what it is we do here on the show. We're here to talk about gaming from a mature, adult perspective. What that means is we aren't going to get into console wars. We're not going to be waving fanboy flags for whatever piece of plastic. And we're not going to get into any petty arguments about things. What we will do is talk about facts about gaming and the gaming industry in simple language and give our opinions on why these things matter. We will talk about gaming as an adult and as parents, and we will also talk about the games we are playing. You can find more from us on YouTube. The link is in the description. And on Twitter by following at Amarren Studios. That is AMARRENSTUDIOS. We're available as an audio show on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you want to catch your pods. Be sure to like us, rate us, ring that bell, because all of that helps everyone else find this show. And we want those comments. We want your feedback. So let's hear it. With all that said, let's get into it. We got lots of news this week. Has happened. And I'm not even going to talk about the big thing, which is obviously the Microsoft ABK thing. Maybe touch on that at the end, but nothing major. To kick it all off, though, Spider-Man 2 story trailer came from Comic-Con. This happened yesterday. They showed off the story trailer for Spider-Man 2. Showed a lot of engagement. We got to see Harry. We got to see Venom and Miles and kind of the dynamic that's happening there. And maybe a little bit of foreshadowing for what to expect out of this game. I personally think if you haven't watched the trailer, pause this video right now, go watch the trailer, and then come back, because I'm going to talk about what was in that trailer, and it's going to be important. So ready? Pause. And we're back. All right. Talking about the what was in that trailer. I think what we can see is that obviously we know we bounced from Miles and Peter Parker in the trailer, and in the gameplay. We're seeing things from different perspectives. So we're going to be taking control of Peter Parker or Miles Morales, depending on that part of the game. And then outside of that, I think when you're in free roam, you're able to kind of do whatever you want. I believe we're going to be seeing a showdown between Miles and Peter Parker, but a showdown more so in between Spider-Man and Venom, which is a fun thing to explore there, I think. We saw a fair bit of MJ as well. And obviously, I think there's some foreshadowing there, but I would bank on Harry being the big part of this. Anyways, it was a good story trailer. It's laying down some good groundwork for what's to come. The game comes out October 20th, so it'll be pretty cool. They also announced a special Spider-Man 2 PS5 and a controller. So if you haven't seen that, go Google that. That thing looks pretty impressive. They're also available separately. You can buy the controller separately, and you can get the Spider-Man 2 covers for your PS5 if you already have a PS5. So you don't have to go out and get a special edition one if you're a diehard Spider-Man fan, which is part of the intent of the way they designed this console, to have those new side covers. So I think that's a really good benefit for people that are fans that don't want to constantly be buying new consoles, like my Zelda Switch that's up there. Anyways, pretty cool. Let me know what you think of that. Let me know what you think of what happened in that trailer and where you think that's going. On to the next story, Far Cry 7 rumors. This kind of lines up with what I've talked about in the past a little bit about Far Cry 7 here and other places. Far Cry 7, we've known for a while that Far Cry 7 is obviously it's coming, but that it was going to be set kind of bringing things back a little bit to normality, if you will, for Far Cry, which is still completely insane. And that is, you got I think they're trying to recreate the Far Cry 5 vibe without it being Far Cry 5, like in the United States. It became a lot of flack with the setting on that, with the whole, we're not trying to make a political statement thing with Far Cry 6, and obviously Cuba subbing for, or Yara subbing for Cuba in that. Anyways, obviously, there's been some leaks out of this week. None of this is obviously confirmed. Take that with a grain of salt, but leaks are citing very credible sources. And this just kind of lines up with everything that I have heard as well. And I can't corroborate, sorry, I can't corroborate anything independently in this aspect. So, but it lines up, and it also kind of lines up with that gut feeling of what you think the next one's going to be. So to get into it, it's called Far Cry Rise. It's not numbered. It's set on an island in close proximity to Korea, a fictional island. North Korean insurgents have occupied this island. The bad guys, played by the star of the Squid Game. I apologize if I'm going to butcher this. Lee Jung-jae, I believe, was his name. You play as Andrew or Mina Park. They're Korean idols and siblings. And the objective is, long and short of it, you're saving the other sibling from the captors from this North Korean insurgency. It's the usual open world aspect. It's up to 4-player co-op. What I think is kind of unique about this thing is how they're incorporating a multiplayer thing, and this is what kind of lines up with previous reporting here. It launches with Far Cry Conquest. So there's Far Cry Rise and Far Cry Conquest, which is an extraction-based mode that sees players teamed up in trios to escape the island against a horde of 90 other players or AI combatants. So it'd be a combination. Sounds like your standard extraction gameplay mode. This will have narrative-driven side quests and valuable loot and other missions to help build your arsenal for your next match. So it's going to kind of keep on feeding into it. And these two things are going to be, they're being developed separately, my understanding, and they're going to be slapped together and shipped. That does line up with what I've heard. Ubisoft Toronto and Montreal leading up development on Far Cry as kind of normal, with, I believe, Ubisoft Shanghai polishing things up in the background and helping out where they can. As I say, this all lines up with everything we've heard about before, things that I've reported on before. And this goes back to what I heard when they were doing some hiring and things like that about a year ago. So it works, and I think it makes sense. Getting back to that island setting, it worked very well for Far Cry 6. I think the setting worked well. I think the narrative of Far Cry 6 was a little weak, whereas this has a different potential. Pardon me. I do, looking at Far Cry 6 as itself, I'm not going to preach the game. It has its flaws. They all do. I think all Far Cries have some flaws where they play on stereotypes and harmful things. And some other situations seem maybe forced with it in order to be politically correct or to do things like that. But with the one thing I really liked about Far Cry 6 was kind of the tools, the systems that they put into place in it. We've got better. There's better. The hunting system was kind of the same, but there's better weapons customization, gadgets. Your outfits kind of matter, and there's a little kind of RPG aspects to that. You don't have the skill tree that you're leveling up like you did in previous Far Cries. You have a set kind of skills, but you're opening up opportunities with your gear and your gadgets and your equipment. And I think that those tool sets on top of like a Far Cry 5 narrative in a traditional island setting for the Far Cry universe, or isolated setting, didn't make much sense why, once you got the planes and took out the AA guns, why you can just fly the heck out of Montana in Far Cry 5 to me. But I guess you could, and you just chose not to. Maybe that was part of it. But anyways, I hope they fix some of those things, get the best of what made, obviously the recipe with Far Cry 3 worked really well. They need to get off that. It's time to get off that recipe per se, but maybe they were trying to close something together here, and let's give them the benefit of the doubt there. Far Cry 4, I've actually kind of hopped back into that a little bit here. I realized I never 100%ed it, so I was like, well, let's go see if I can go do that. So I've been playing it just and little breaks here and there. I'll talk more about that a little bit later. But really, the systems and things in play and the way they made Far Cry 5 was a really good recipe for that. And then 6, I think, improved those systems. So I would like to see those systems taken and just plopped into a better game, really. As much as you really hated Giancarlo Esposito's character in Far Cry 6, and you were supposed to, um, there was never any kind of redemption in there to me. It really ended poorly, and narratively it wasn't really well thought out. Like the whole guerrilla aspect of the game, I don't think really worked as a one man versus an army thing, which is what Far Cry is supposed to be about. So, anyways, moving on from that, let me know what you think of Far Cry 7's potential, and if it's something that excites you or not. Let me know in the comments. Arcane Austin, the makers of Redfall, appear to be going back to their immersive sim roots after Redfall, according to a job listing. Lead technical engineer is the job that they're posting for, and it requires, and I quote here, familiarity with single player action RPGs and immersive sims. This is evident that Arcane needs a home run, especially after Redfall. Redfall being such a departure from what they traditionally make and what they do. I didn't expect it to land 100%, but it wasn't there. It wasn't good. It wasn't up to their normal quality level, which I think is a bad start, right? This one they're comfortable with. They're comfortable with doing immersive sims. That's what they do. So let's bang out Prey 2 or whatever that's going to be. I don't think Prey needs a sequel. I think maybe another story with that kind of mentality would work, right? I don't think it needs a straight up sequel though. But anyways, that sounds interesting. Maybe it's just another Dishonored. Who knows? Maybe it's something entirely new. But immersive sim is exactly what Arcane Austin needs to be making, and they can figure out how they're going to deviate off of that maybe later on down the road. Anyways, also a new King Kong game has been leaked by Amazon Spain. They posted the game on their listing pages. It's called Skull Island: Rise of Kong. It looks to be for current and past gen hardware, meaning it doesn't look great, but you know, it is what it is. It's a licensed product, so obviously most licensed products aren't exactly 100% awesome. I think a game where you play as King Kong and maybe there's a Godzilla versus Kong fight or something like that. Maybe there's something there. This hasn't even been announced by the developer yet, so we'll see. It looks like it was completely by accident put up there, probably as these storefronts are putting things up for pre-order, getting things ready for pre-order with Gamescom right around the corner. I could see things like that happening, right? These companies are getting told, hey, this is what you need to get the store ready for. So that way, when the announcement happens at Gamescom, they can push the button and go, pre-orders are live or what have you, right? Speaking of upcoming games, Metroid Prime 2 is coming soonish. Exact words, soonish, according to Jeff Grubb on his last of the Nintendogs podcast on Tuesday. Metroid Prime Metroid Prime 2 remaster is less involved than the Metroid Prime remake that launched earlier this year. And by that I mean like this was a full-scale remake that we got on Metroid Prime for Switch. This is going to be less so. Those games were further along anyways. They'll probably refresh the graphics, make it look shiny, maybe dump the tank controls on it, but they're not going to be remaking every asset. Get rid of the tank controls, put on traditional FPS controls, things like that. Metroid's always been a fun game, and especially Metroid Prime. I've really enjoyed those, so this is something that does excite me quite a bit. I'm speculating that we get Metroid Prime 2 announced in a late summer, maybe fall direct from Nintendo. Metroid Prime 3 remaster, we know they're doing 1, 2, and 3. Metroid Prime 3 remaster will get announced probably next spring sometime in first half 2024. They'll do another direct, as they tend to space these things out quarterly. And and do a maybe a shadow drop of these things, or maybe they just say, hey, it's coming this week or whatever. The shadow drop really worked really well with Metroid Prime remake, so we'll see. And then obviously Metroid Prime 4, which has been in development since like 2016, 2017. It's a brand new game. It's not a remaster or remake if you're not familiar with the series. And it was announced for the Switch. I think it's going to be kind of like the last hurrah for the Switch as far as like a game coming out for it. It's likely going to be cross-generation between the Switch and the Switch successor, whatever that's going to be, which is rumored to come out next fall, next holiday. So I think this is all kind of a, let's drop a new Metroid game every quarter for a year and see how that goes. Or, you know, space it out, not every quarter, maybe every half year or something like that. Anyways, related to that, Jeff Grubb in the same podcast, almost in the same sentence, also reports that something Zelda related that isn't Tears of the Kingdom related is happening later this year. He can't quite pin it down, and he doesn't want to speculate, which I respect dramatically there. It could just be an announcement. It could be and it could be a release. We don't know. These types of leaks and rumors typically stem from marketing efforts, and that's where the leak happens. And because that's when you're getting outside companies involved in the process. So that's when things pop out. So it might not be like a release for 2023. It could be a release for next year, and they're just getting the marketing packaging ready right now. But he's saying he's hearing rumblings of a Zelda thing happening that doesn't have anything to do with Tears of the Kingdom. The last time we had anything like that, there was rumors about Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD, which was supposed to get announced like last year and fill a hole in the schedule. Well, it turns out they didn't have a hole in the schedule and it didn't release. So I personally think like these games, we know they were remaking these, like that's all but confirmed. Pretty much every reporter that has a feeling in for Nintendo has reported on this. And we know that they've been completed for at least a year now, maybe a year and a half. So that kind of lines up, and Nintendo does things like this. They did this with Pikmin 2. They sat on it. Was it Pikmin 2 or Pikmin 3? One of the two. They sat on it for almost a year before they released it because they waited for there to be kind of a hole in the schedule. And they go, oh, hey, we need something to release this window and put it in. So, and Twilight Princess Wind Waker HD will more than likely be a double pack. Like it'll be both games in one SKU for full price, like a $60 or $70 game. The likely thing at this point, in my opinion, yet again, this isn't Jeff speaking, this is me speaking. We currently don't have anything from Nintendo in September and nothing from Nintendo in December. So I'm thinking Metroid Prime 2 Shadow Drop around the Direct that they will have likely in September-ish time frame. So Shadow Drop that, and then Zelda Twilight Princess Wind Waker for December, the holiday thing. I think that fits, right? That's my most likely scenario. Moving on, dads, you can rejoice. Bluey the video game has been leaked by the Australian Classification Board. Everybody's favorite kids cartoon, Bluey, has got its own game coming. It's been developed by Artax and published by Outright Games. The official description from the Australian Classification Board goes as follows. Follow the Healer family on a holiday adventure to find a treasure hidden by Bandit and his brothers many years ago. The game takes place in 5 iconic show locations, and its story mode tells a family-friendly adventure about creating your own cherished memories with your family. I think that's good. That sounds like a fun little adventure thing with Bluey and Bandit and Bingo and the whole gamut. And it sounds fun. A little treasure hunt kind of thing. The humor will be there. You know, you got to nail these things. And Outright has a knack for nailing these things. They've published some great games targeted at younger audiences, and these games don't skimp on quality. They tend to be very well made. They tend to have gameplay elements for much more what we would call mature or grown-up games. As far as gameplay elements, I mean like leveling weapons or a skill tree or Metroidvania-esque aspects of it where you kind of got to loop around and come back to to solve puzzles and stuff like that. Not, mature themes, which is completely different, but gameplay aspects that take a little bit of age and experience to grow into. They soften them up a little bit and get them learning these things at a younger age, which I think is really good. I'm excited, to be honest with you. I don't even know if I'm going to tell my kids. Like, kids are huge Bluey fans, and I might just get this game for myself, and then once I beat it, let them have at it. Then I have a chance of playing it. On to some more rumors. We could be getting an August reveal of the PlayStation 5 Slim variant, according to rumors and reports online. The Slim variant, which reportedly has a detachable disc drive, has long since been rumored to launch this holiday season. We can expect the same price point as the PS5 digital version. It's not going to be like a price drop. They're just going to introduce it at that price point. And what you're asking is, what's the difference? Well, it's going to be the PS5 digital version, essentially. Like, it's going to have a detachable disc drive. You have to pay like $100 to get that too. So it would effectively be the same price as a standard model PS5, except for it's probably going to come with more memory. I would expect a 2 terabyte drive in it, as opposed to the slightly less than 1 terabyte that it has in it now. That's probably going to be about it as far as what the difference is that you and I are going to see. The chips will be manufactured on I believe a 6 or maybe even a 5 nanometer process. Much more effective, much more cost effective for them. Essentially, this is just going to be Sony's way of making more money off of the SKU. So they'll phase out what is left of the inventory of the traditional PS5s and then introduce this with the detachable detachable disc drive. So you get it, and if you don't want to play Blu-rays or whatever, you just don't get that disc drive. If you don't have Legacy Games Collection, you don't get the disc drive. It's simple as that, right? I am not 100% sure about this August timeframe that they're saying. I think August might be too soon. I think more than likely September might be a better time frame for it. August we have Gamescom, we have things happening. Sony will probably be there, but it's not somewhere where they would announce something like this, I don't think. I think we're in for a state of play, as everybody's kind of been inclined to believe after the showcase that they did earlier wasn't exactly its A game as far as Sony is concerned. So I would suspect we see a state of play out of the way of that Gamescom, right? We also are going to probably get more deep dive into Spiderman. It's kind of to be expected. It is their big game this year. So with that kind of all in mind and the state of play coming, I think more September makes more sense to me. Again, I'm just going by my gut and kind of what I feel with it. The only thing kind of hurting that to my gut is we still have that pesky Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 thing to have happen. Sony has the marketing deal for that. They have to do that, as much as they probably don't want to do that now. They have to. It's their contract. Unless both sides decide to dissolve that contract, which I think would be horrible to do at this point in time. They got to do it. And the reason why that's given me the ick when it comes to this feeling is the Call of Duty Twitter account's been a little bit more active in tweeting and teasing what's coming. And we know this is a game from Sledgehammer. We know it's basically Modern Warfare 3. It started off as an expansion. That's what we were originally going to get this year, was an expansion. And then it kind of grew to the point where they're like, you know what, we're just going to call it Modern Warfare 3, slap a $70 price tag on it and sell it as such. So they decided to work with that. We'll see. We'll see what happens with obviously with Call of Duty, and if this PS5 Slim thing is confirmed. Related to that, we do have some late breaking news, and by late breaking, I mean I was sitting down having a beverage before I decided to record, and this news broke. Late breaking news from Kita Gaming, which is a news site from Insider Gaming, I believe. It's referred to as Project Trinity. The PS5 Pro is not only in development, but slated to release November 2024, with developers receiving development kits for it as early as this November. Citing sources familiar with the development of the PS5 Pro, they go on to say that Trinity has been in development since early 2022, and demo events are currently underway with developers. The console will be targeting consistent high FPS at 4K resolution with a new 8K performance mode and accelerated ray tracing. That's kind of unnecessary, in my opinion, but if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. The reason why PS4 Pro worked is because we had these buzzwords, 4K and ray tracing, and we were able to sell things out through the system because of that. People wanted a 4K gaming experience. They didn't have it with the PS4 or with the Xbox One, right? So they started offering that mentality with that. I've said before, and I'll say it again, the Xbox One and the PS4 were rushed. They came out way too early. And that was a direct impact of that. We don't have that problem this time. Everybody is on board with 4K gaming. We have it now. It's fine. There is some slight demand, I guess, for better ray tracing, or more accurately, more efficient ray tracing that isn't so GPU heavy. There is a need, I think, for that, but the 8K thing, like, we all just finally started getting the 4K monitors at a decent price, 4K TVs at a decent price. Now you're going to tell us we have to go out and buy an $8,000 TV? Not happening, right? Most people are just nah, right? Me, who really likes having the latest and greatest stuff, I do not have any desire to go and get an 8K TV. None, right? So we'll see. Interestingly enough, as reported before, Xbox head Phil Spencer has said that this Xbox Series X was this generation's mid-gen refresh, or the mid-gen Pro offering, right? So like last time they had this Xbox One and then the Xbox One X. The Series X is that. They just decided to launch it earlier when they were kind of comparing specs with what they thought PlayStation was going to offer. They were like, well, let's just drop the Series X right off the hop and see how that goes. That's kind of explains as well why there was hardware shortages at the beginning of the cycle for the Xbox Series X, because that order probably came in late. So anyways, it's doubtful that they have anything to answer to that in the pipeline. So we might just be getting a PS5 Pro, which also could be taking the heat off of Sony a little bit, to be like, is this really necessary to invest all this time and money into this when they're only going to sell a fraction of the units? You know, there's no demand for it, right? There's no competition for it. So we'll see. Another leak from another ratings board. Borderlands Pandora's Box compilation has received a rating from South Africa's ratings board. This is likely a repack of all the games that have been released, you know, Borderlands 1, 2, and 3, the pre-sequel, maybe Tales, maybe Tiny Tina's Wonderland, with HD textures and upgrades already done, quality of life improvements, all that stuff already done. Nothing new, really. It's just probably going to be a repack. No new Borderlands game has been released yet, or has been announced yet. Though smart money is on Borderlands 4 coming probably late 2024. And you're going to ask me, why do you think that, Scott? Because I haven't heard that, or Warren, sorry. Why do you think that? Because you haven't heard that anywhere else. Well, because Borderlands, the movie, has finally got a release date. The release date is August 9th, 2024. This movie, Eli Roth is behind it, or was behind it. And then they did principal photography for quite a while. And then that ended. And then we heard nothing. Like nothing. And then there's been delays and reshoots and pickups done since then using different directors. I believe Tim Miller's involved in it to some degree, who's Deadpool 1 director. The writers started using pen names or pseudonyms on the project to obviously not be associated with it. Jamie Lee Curtis called it wacky in an interview. So, you know, not a lot of faith there. In the casting, as I said, Jamie Lee Curtis, the casting, in case you don't know, Kevin Hart has been casted as Roland. Kate Blanchett was cast as Lilith. Jack Black as Claptrap. Jamie Lee Curtis as Dr. Tanis. none of this makes any sense to me. And it's also like there's too much detail in that plot. It's not an amazing plot, by the way, but there's still too much going on in there for, I think, a 90-minute movie to make sense. Um, we'll have to see. We'll have to see if nobody goes to see it, or if everybody goes to see it. It could have that potential to be so bad it's good. It could just, I could be wrong, and it could just be great. Who knows? Just everything about it just kind of has a little bit of a ick to it. And then some sad news. Xbox Live is dead. Well, it transitions over to Xbox Game Pass Core 2 months from now. What that basically means is same price. There's no more games with gold monthly releases involved in this. However, you're part of Game Pass now. It's Game Pass Core. So you're getting approximately 25 games from Game Pass. We're not 100% sure on what that layout's going to look like yet. I would suspect that they would have like probably 20 titles that are a lock, let's say, for being involved in there, and maybe 5 games that are kind of like a revolving door of what's new, what's hot, bring people on board with it, give them the taste to get them into the higher tiers. Obviously includes the online multiplayer, and everything else about it stays the same, which brings me to the important question is, why are we still paying for online multiplayer? Like, why is that still a thing? Why are we subsidizing $1 trillion companies, or in Sony's case, $1 billion companies, or Nintendo's $1 billion companies case, online multiplayer service? Like, that doesn't make sense. It's not a bespoke experience to me. It's business. The first company that loses that online multiplayer subscription, I think has a big advantage as far as what is going to drive the door for sales and hardware retention and things like that. Anyways, moving forward. Blizzard is going to address disgruntled Diablo 4 community after patch backlash. This is from IGN, and that was exactly the title of the article. It kind of summed it up perfectly, so I just borrowed it. The patch messed with classes and drop rates of various items. A hotfix was pushed already for some of this at the time that I went live here. They're going to address the community directly sometime today, sometime Friday. That hasn't happened yet. They called it a fireside chat kind of thing. They really do need to find, from what I've been reading, I have yet to dive into this, but they need to find a balance in between casuals and newcomers with what the diehard fans want, because they need to be able to attract people into the game and into the ecosystem so they buy the game, pay for the transactions, do those things. But they also need to make sure that the diehard fans are still happy. And I think what they're trying to do is balance out the overpowered builds a little bit there. But they shouldn't shy away from overpowered builds, because that's one of the things that Diablo fans love about Diablo, is feeling like this unstoppable beast. And getting rid of that kind of changes that whole dynamic. It'd be kind of sad if they patch that over, but we'll see what they have to say in the fireside chat. Maybe they have some insight into what they're trying to do and why they're trying to go about it. Anyways, that about does it for the news this week. As always, but particularly with this week, since there was a higher amount of rumors and unconfirmed reports in this week's news section, please remember that nothing is confirmed until it is actually confirmed. And nothing is launching until it is launched. Dates change all the time. Things change, and it all happens for various reasons. It could be economic, it could be political, it could be societal, any sort of reason. I want to kind of give an example of that. Nintendo held off the release of Advance Wars Reboot Camp 1 and 2, the remaster repack of remake repack of that game. Or those games. They held off on that for over a year because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And the game was done. It was going to come out in a couple of weeks. Then Russia invaded Ukraine, and they went yoink, pulled it off the shelf. My local store had a display for it. It was empty, but they had a display for it. Right. So, keep that kind of stuff in mind. These things, as I say, these things change, and we don't necessarily always know what the business reason is behind it, but there usually is one, right? Anyways, this week as I said, I played a little bit of Far Cry 4, just kind of in between things here and there, but I didn't have lot of time at all because I was on holiday with my family. Um, my big chemo schedule, the next 4 months, starts on Monday. And we decided we had an opportunity to take some time away as a family. So we did, because it's basically going to be the only time I'm going to be able to leave for the next 4 months. So that means there wasn't really a whole lot of time for me to sit down and play games. I played a little bit when I got back, and I played a little bit before we left. But other than that, and as I said, I was just me realizing, hey, I haven't actually 100% completed this game. And when I said earlier I hadn't 100%ed it, I'm not achievement hunting. I mean, I didn't finish the actual game. For some reason, I have a fever dream that I completed the game. Save file says otherwise. So it's like, you know what? Maybe I should just do that and get that out of the way. And so I'm going to work on that. But I also have Like a Dragon to finish. I have Tears of the Kingdom to finish. So it kind of depends on what mood I'm in at that moment in time, what I'm going to do. If I feel like I want a shooter, I'm going to go to Far Cry. If I feel like I want an action a turn-based RPG, I'm probably going to go to Yakuza Like a Dragon. And if I feel like I want to completely ignore the main quest and go hunt little seeds of trees, I'm probably going to go to Tears of the Kingdom, right? So we'll see. I'm probably going to make significant headway starting chemo next week. So I'm probably going to have a lot more time to sit there and just play games and feel like horrible garbage. So maybe there is some light at the end of the tunnel for that one. So apologize to the game section a little short this week, but it is what it is. I do have some more questions from the audience, though. I love doing these, so please keep sending them in. Twitter user, hopefully I'm saying this right, Twitter user Poolpanman asks, why haven't you discussed the Final Fantasy 16 not selling well story? I'm pretty sure I know what they're alluding to, which is this console warring thing that's been happening online. I've seen it on Twitter. I don't get into console warring. I don't. But since it's been brought up, since you brought it up, let's talk about this for a minute. And I went into the what has been reported, and the game has sold over 3 million copies in its first week, right? So launch week, 3 million copies. There are about 38 million PS5s available. The game is exclusive to PS5, by the way. 38 million PS5s in the world out there being played right now. Whether it's one guy has 10 of them or what, I don't know, but there's 38 million. That is an attach rate of about 10%. So that means for 10% of the PS5s have a copy of Final Fantasy 16. That is an impressive attach rate. I didn't report on it because there's nothing to report. Those are great numbers. Those are pretty good numbers considering, it's not Mario Kart numbers. Still very good numbers. Especially considering the fact it's PS5 exclusive, right? Final Fantasy, just for comparison's sake, Final Fantasy 7 Remake sold 3.5 million in its first week as a PS4 exclusive. There's I think 80 or 90 million, maybe even more PS4s at the time of that, right? So that considerably many more PS4s available at that point in time than what there are now. So, or what there are PS5s now. So it's I still think that's good numbers. And if I'm remembering correctly, Final Fantasy, I don't have this one written down, but Final Fantasy 15, I believe, sold 5 million on its launch day, which probably would be the best in franchise history. But it was also available on everything, PC, Xbox, PlayStation. Completely different situation. The most important part of that is Square Enix is calling it a success. They don't do PR spin. They called Tomb Raider a failure. They called Hitman a failure. They called Guardians of the Galaxy a failure because they didn't sell 10 million copies in their first month. Right? They didn't outsell Mario Kart 8 or Animal Crossing or something. Right? Like they didn't do Nintendo Switch numbers while they were only available on a handful of things. So if Square Enix is saying this is good for them, I'm going to believe it because honestly, they have really high expectations as a company, and they tend to turn on them really quickly. But anyways, thank you for that question. As I said, keep them coming. And I didn't write down where this is from, but I know it was from Twitter. So Twitter user Red Wolf asks, does Halo Infinite ever make a comeback? Probably not. Hey, bye everybody. No, probably not. It's been too long to really make good on those promises that were given at the beginning of this. Get back up there, camera. At the beginning of this of that launch, right? They promised, when the game was coming, before it came out, they promised, split screen this and Forge and all this stuff, and then they shipped Forge like a year late. They shipped split screen. Well, split screen got canceled for campaign, like just canceled. At least they worked it into online, although apparently it was buggy as hell at the very beginning. I didn't get into online campaign until a little bit later. But anyways, it's been kind of too long to make good on those promises. The game is fun to some degree, but it was kind of overshadowed by that clunky release and lack of the features on day one that I just talked about and those kind of things. And the fact that they still had to build these things in. I think going forward, this is kind of a learning experience for 343 as a developer. And it also should be the last learning experience they get because they kind of buggered up before. And I'm not saying get rid of the company, fire everybody or whatever. I'm thinking maybe they should be working as a support for the Halo team and we find a different Halo team. Again, I haven't heard anything confirming or denying that. However, they should be managing Halo Infinite as far as the content and the bugs and things like that. But the main focus should be on building a proper and fresh, more complete Halo experience for the next release. And don't even announce that they're doing it right now. Just work on it in the background. Just constantly be pounding on that. And then when they are ready to release it, basically have, this is what we've been making. Surprise. That being said, certain Affinity should be releasing their Battle Royale, which was a mode for Halo Infinite. They should be releasing that mode soon. I'm not sure if it's going to be standalone now or built into Halo Infinite as some sort of thing. It's rumored to be done in Unreal as opposed to the Slip Space engine that Jesus, Murphy, I got to fix that. Get back up there. It's rumored to be done in Unreal as opposed to the Slip Space engine that Halo Infinite's done in. So, again, I haven't been able to confirm any of that, but those are the rumors. And that could help bolster some interest, but I don't think it's going to do what they want it to do. It's going to have its core fan base, and I think the casuals have moved on at this point. Anyways, thank you for the questions. If you have a question you'd like to ask me, send it over on Twitter, email, or Facebook, whatever way you want. Again, you know how to get a hold of us, and I'll go over all that in about half a minute. That just about does it for me this week. You can find more of us on Twitter by following Amarren Studios. That is AMARREN STUDIOS. Or on YouTube. Our link is in the audio description. Or if you're watching the YouTube version, you can find our audio feeds in the description there. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you want to find your pods. I've been Warren. You've been the best audience I could ask for. Thank you for joining me, and see you next time. Goodbye. Enjoy your gaming.